the U.S. is obviously backtracking off of the focus on ethical, responsible AI over innovation. I think we see China more so try to control, everything very narrowly, very specifically. If you want to talk about a spider web of compliance requirements, that is what China has right now. And
hello and welcome to the Test Community Network. I hope you're safe and well. My name's Tim Burnett and welcome to this episode. This is fresh off the back of last week. We had the amazing Innovations in Testing conference out there in Florida. I hope you all got home safe and well, those that were there. 1,100 colleagues out there talking about assessment, talking about what's new, talking about how we can keep the validity and integrity for the assessment world in this kind of quite quickly changing space that we're in. As ever, anything you see on here, we have the testcommunity.network. Today we have an interview with Allison Mulford. We presented together as part of a panel session, and I'll share a link in the show notes for this as well. So there'll be more information you can find out about what was discussed. That was particularly about kind of compliance, etc. But this one, we're talking about the kind of the regulatory landscape across the global network. If you want to subscribe to the Test Community Network website, then do so. You get a lovely email every week jam-packed full of amazing insights into events like these ones I'm going to share with you now. So we've got a webinar coming up. This is my webinar. I'm going to do this on the 24th of April, and we're looking at cheating in AI, creating AI-based tools, or using AI platforms as well to create tools which are AI-based to cheat in examinations. And I'm going to show you how I was able to create one quite quickly using tools which are readily available now, and just what the kind of the integrity threat looks like really at the moment. So it is an invite-only session because it's quite a sensitive topic. So you need to have a verified email address for a regulatory organization or awarding organization. So please do come along to that, and I'll talk you through what I did and just give you a bit of a heads up as to what to expect we're going to be seeing in the coming months. So we've got other events coming up. We've got the Proctor Track Optimizing Live Proctoring Strategy. They've got a webinar. You should just catch that. That's later on today on the 3rd of April. Again, 3rd of April, we've got Bench Prep Scaling a Success. So you'll see them again in a second. Riser, I've got Digital OSCE Advantage, Edinburgh's Vet School Exam Transformation. That's on the 8th of April. 9th of April, we've got the ALT partner webinar, Transforming Learning with the University of Bradford and Echo 360. So very close to my heart there, here in lovely Bradford. There's the EdTech Italia. I've got a webinar coming up. I can't quite remember what's in there, but if you want to know what's going on in Italy in EdTech, then it's worth checking that one out. Bench Prep again, I've got a sponsored webinar this time with ATP, Association of Test Publishers. That's on the 10th of April. 16th of April, we've got Privacy Challenges in the Age of AI with Daniel Solov. Sorry, I forgot that wrong. It's worth checking that one out if you're interested in privacy challenges. Cirrus, I've got No Barriers, Just Knowledge, Rethinking Exam Accessibility. That's on the 16th of April. And then we've got Beyond Technology, the Education Podcast, Going National with the DEI FE survey, so looking at the big picture for the FE space there, so close to my heart again. And then we've got AI Show, What to Know, conversation with Fran Rosenberg and Michael Falalski. So if you want to check that out, that's on the podcast session. So going to my conversation now with Allison. Now, I've got an apology to make, and thankfully it's only on my side, but my audio wasn't right. I didn't have the right mic on when we did this. So my audio will be terrible, but Allison is the main star of this. She's the one who's given all the answers. So just ignore my audio and listen to Allison's amazing responses. So over here to Allison and me in conversation.
Well, good. Thank you for joining me. I hope you're well.
Yeah, I'm doing great. Thanks so much for having me today, Tim.
No problem. So anyone who doesn't know you, do you want to tell everyone a bit more about yourself, what you do?
Sure. I'm Allison Mulford. I am the solo practitioner of Mulford and Associates. I've been working in the testing community really since 2014, so a good time now. Mostly in-house on the service provider side, but since 2022, I've been out solo on my own, working largely in privacy and data protection matters, AI governance now, and a lot of just corporate general legal services work.
Excellent. So you must be quite busy right now, really. There must be a lot of people kind of coming up to you asking for your services, particularly around the AI side of things.
There's certainly a lot going on right now, a lot to unpack. And so I've been fortunate to kind of be in this niche and to be able to see what's unfolding in this landscape right now.
So you're based in America. So just give us a kind of snapshot as I suppose the AI governance and legal kind of situation in America. What's happening there right now?
Sure thing. So, we saw things really shift at the start of the year when the new administration took charge. They immediately rescinded the Biden executive order on responsible and ethical AI. Now we're taking more of a focus on innovation, versus regulatory oversight or governance controls. And I think that, that's what we'll see now for the time being. It's interesting because that's really, kind of at the federal, overarching level landscape. But we are seeing many states now in the U.S. come out with their own more niche, laws or regulations around the use of AI, especially in places like employment, the employment context and vetting candidates and employees, as well as in the consumer health data protection space.
And as in terms of the new administration come in, it wasn't a political topic, really, was it at all? AI as part of the campaigning process. It was, there was very much a kind of almost like a non-discussion around it. But obviously, all the major AI chiefs were all sat there behind Trump, the kind of the inauguration and things like that. So it was obviously quite a big part of the process. Do you think? They're taking an innovation, federally taking an innovation first approach. Mm-hmm. What is it that's driving the states to make these decisions? What is it that kind of there's difference, and is that making things more complicated? Is that going to be a challenge?
Sure. I think that the states largely were already down this road. To pass, legislation through the states, it's a long, complicated process. Many of them had introduced, that have passed now, had introduced these laws or regulations some time ago, and they, were passed within their state legislatures, probably, prior to this administration taking effect. I think many of the laws that we're seeing at the state level have kind of followed in the privacy, space trend, data protection trend, and followed all of the laws that have passed in that space in the recent years, coming off of the heels of GDPR. And I think that, some of the states are taking more of a narrow tact, like I said, and they are, coming out with regulations or rules with respect to specific, categories that might be considered personal data or automated decisions that the AI models could be making to kind of, protect certain niche spaces of consumers or individuals and their data. But largely, I think that we're seeing, that the AI focus in those areas is still largely based on the concepts of privacy and data protection.
Yeah. Okay. And then kind of you've got half an eye on Europe. Is that fair to say, just to see what's happening there? So how would what's your kind of assessment of Europe and the kind of the difference between Europe and kind of America's approach?
Sure. So, Europe was again the front runner with the EU AI Act, just like they were with GDPR in the privacy space. I think that, largely you've seen many other jurisdictions trying to follow that. But I think that since this new administration has come into play in the United States, and our vice president went to the Paris summit and kind of made our position clear about innovation over oversight. We've seen, in the new guidance documents or guidelines that are coming out of the EU, kind of backtrack and put more of the oversight control back in the hands of the member states, allowing them to dictate their own, kind of penalties or oversight obligations over the EU AI Act requirements. And so I think that, we might continue to see that backtracking over some of the more hardline requirements of the EU AI Act in deference to what the individual member states want to do and how they want to handle the innovation aspect over the governance aspect.
Yeah, I think because it almost seemed quite strong, didn't it? It seemed quite almost restricted, and I think that was a lot of kind of views. I kind of like what they were trying to achieve with it, and the ideas behind it, because obviously it's a dangerous piece of technology, but without any kind of regulation, anything in place, then a lot of harm could come from about it.
Mm-hmm.
But yeah, I imagine, from my kind of perspective, I'd say countries like Ireland would be wanting something a little bit softer in its approach to enable innovation, because it's quite a technology kind of first country, whereas countries like Germany, which are very privacy and a lot stricter about that, would probably want to retain. So yeah, it's probably a good thing, really, isn't it? That it's kind of backtracking. I suppose. What's your perspective of UK? We're kind of stuck in the middle because we're obviously no longer part of Europe. What's your kind of view on what we're doing with AI and regulation? Is it murky?
Yeah, I think it continues to be murky. I think that just like we saw with GDPR, where the UK kind of slow rolled its response to GDPR, I think that we will probably see a lot of that out of the UK. And that, as things evolve and develop, and we see how other member states are handling, some of the penalties and the oversight that comes out of this, I think that we'll probably see the UK come out with their own version of the EU AI Act, the UK AI Act.
Yeah, I don't think it'll be a direct copy. I think we have taken a slightly more innovation first, but maybe not as maybe radical as America in that way. I think what I'm seeing is the individual departments and government organisations like Ofqual have set in their own kind of AI regulation or rules within that. So which I imagine to someone like yourself who's dealing with organisations that are international, so it's just making life kind of harder, isn't it, in a way? But when you've got people coming to you, what kind of advice do you? Is there almost like a one size fits all approach to this, or is it everything very different as to how people are approaching what they're doing, how they're using it? Is it just too hard to really give a kind of one size t-shirt size for this?
No, I don't think so at all. I think that at the end of the day, every organization has their own mission, vision, and values that's driving their organization's objectives, strategies, decision-making. And I think that an organization's use of AI and AI systems, whether or not you're a developer of them or just a user or a customer of them, your use of AI shouldn't change or revolutionize your mission or your values or your vision. It should be aligned with it. And so if you have developed over the course of years this kind of sound, mission, these values that are driving your organization, and you stay steadfast to that, I think that a lot of what you do will already be in compliance with, the EUA Act or what's coming out with respect to a lot of the rules on automated decision making and the use of AI in the States even. And so if you approach it first in that manner and kind of have, this overarching like governance team that's in charge of how AI comes into your organization and you utilize it or deploy it, then I don't think that, there will be all these competing jurisdictional requirements that you have to maintain. I think that you'll be able to, approach a comprehensive look, from that viewpoint. One of the things that I think about a lot, that we talk about in the test community are these niche uses of AI, right? So in the testing community, we talk about the use of AI as far as, generating content and items in test, as well as the impact that it has on using it in the delivery of tests with respect to, detecting anomalies and test taker behavior. But all organizations have probably marketing teams, HR teams, cybersecurity or IT teams. All of those teams are chomping at the bit to use AI too. So you want a comprehensive organizational approach to AI and how, it's acceptable to utilize AI in your business that takes care of all of those teams and doesn't just take care of this one aspect over here and then loses sight of it on the employment side.
And what about things like you mentioned there about the kind of content and copyright side of things? What do you think is the current situation then? Because obviously one thing that people always throw up is you can't copyright your material that's generated from AI, which my understanding is that to a degree you can't do that if it's purely generated by AI. But if you've got human modifications made to it, and it becomes a more human item than it was, an AI item, then there is more chance of copyright. Is that kind of right? Would you say that's?
Yeah, I wouldn't say, that you can't copyright anything that's been, developed using AI. There does have to be a human element involved in the creation of any, artistic works or creative works, written works, to be able to satisfy the copyright requirements. And so what you'll have to prove at the end of the day is that you have had that human intervention along the way, and that it was a human at the end of the day that made the decision about, the overall end product of that copyrightable material. And you do have to disclose that now in your copyright applications when you go to register your copyrights with the office. And that will certainly be reviewed, kind of on a discretionary basis by the examiners.
Yeah, so having a proper audit trail as part of that journey is important, isn't it, as part of it? And then I suppose we've obviously talked about, UK is kind of, where are we kind of position? Who knows? And then, EU is kind of softening. What do you think about the kind of, I suppose, the two superpowers really in a way, the China and America? What's the kind of relationship there like, and what's your kind of experience with China in terms of AI and compliance, etc., and how that interplays with America? What's your kind of thoughts there?
Mm-hmm. Well, I think at the end of the day, I think you said it best earlier that, those two entities are certainly in an arms race to, develop and innovate and be able to utilize AI to support their superpowers, in the years to come. I think that, the U.S. is obviously backtracking off of the focus on ethical, responsible AI over innovation. I think we see China more so try to control, everything very narrowly, very specifically. If you want to talk about a spider web of compliance requirements, that is what China has right now. And I think a lot of us are still trying to navigate the requirements that they have on the privacy and data protection side and their security laws. And so I think that, as far as what we see China coming out with in the regulatory legal landscape, it's all about control. However, what they're doing behind the scenes, to innovate and, move forward, I think that we all know that they're still doing that, and they're taking all of the advantages that they can to innovate as fast as they can on their own.
Yeah, I think there was a moment I recall from so there's the Google DeepMind series. I don't know if about AlphaGo, when they made AlphaGo, and that was in South Korea. And apparently, because that was quite a big news kind of piece, and then a year later, I think they went to play a game in China, and there wasn't as much news coverage. The atmosphere apparently was very, very different, and everyone kind of considers in the AI space, I believe, that to be their kind of Sputnik moment in terms of, we're behind here on the innovation. There's been a lot of movement, and we've obviously seen DeepSeek come out, and these open source models, which seems to be that approach has kind of rocked the space as well. Do you think, because I know America is quite hot on its I suppose defense side of things, and again I was listening to a podcast earlier where they were saying this is the first kind of big thing which is not being developed by the or had any kind of control or initial development from the US Department of Defense. Everything else, GPS, those kind of things have all come from a kind of a defense budget in a way, whereas AI has been developed by purely private organizations, or generative AI has come out from private organizations. Do you think that America might have some kind of additional lockdowns in place that might cause future headaches just to protect them, people against the kind of arms race with China? Or do you not have a kind of view on that? I don't know. What do you think?
I think that there's just as big of risk of not pursuing the use of AI right now as there is of using it without having a strategy or governance overarching it. I think, in the United States, we're seeing an influx of cybersecurity threats and hacks. I think that the Department of Defense was hacked recently by who we believe to be hackers from China, and so I think that there's still work to be done in the U.S. to further lock down and prevent those types of things. I think that AI will be a powerful tool to use in doing that. I don't think that, anything that we have in place will, currently prohibit or prevent, moving forward in those spaces. I think that where we won't be able to move forward is if we don't focus on the innovative uses of AI to deter threats like that. Mm-hmm.
Excellent. Okay. And final question: in terms of what you've seen from compliance and position, who do you think is doing it the best at the moment? Is there any particular place, region, country, state that's getting the mix right?
No, I wouldn't say I wouldn't say any jurisdiction that I can think of. I think that there are companies and organizations that I'm seeing that are getting it right, and those are the ones that have formed a governance, governing structure, governing body at the top levels of the organization that have come out with their position on how to responsibly, ethically, innovatively use AI within those organizations. And they loudly and broadly communicate that position throughout their organization so that everyone is aligned and on the same page. And I think those organizations will be able to act, most flexibly and agilely as the legal and regulatory landscape changes. The legal landscape is always behind, so if you have an opportunity to get ahead of it, you might as well.
That's great. And I won't ask you to name those organizations, but I'm sure if people want to find out a bit more about those organizations, I'm sure they can come to you and find out a bit more from you. So where can people find you, Allison, if they want your services?
I have on LinkedIn, Allison Mulford. On LinkedIn, I have my own website, mulfordlaw.org. And you can reach me in both places. Both have my direct contact information as well.
Perfect. So, well, I'll put your LinkedIn profile on the website in the show notes if people want to see there. But thank you very much for your time. Really appreciate that. And enjoy the rest of your day.
Thanks so much. Really appreciate it, Tim.
Thanks, Allison.
Thank you for that, Alison. That was excellent. A really fascinating conversation. I think it's worth looking at that holistic view as to what's going on internationally. Dependent, kind of irrelevant really as to where you are in the world, because we're a global market. We all need to kind of know and understand what's happening. I think it's slightly unhelpful that individual states in America are having to go through the process of setting up their own regulatory kind of process, but in lieu of kind of anything else, then that's what they're going to do. But then all that's going to happen, I think, really in Europe as well at the moment, is if the European AI Act is softened and devolved a little bit more to the individual states themselves, then you're just going to end up with hundreds of regulatory processes to go through, which is going to get even more murky for everyone. So just a reminder, I think one actual quick question, one actual point came up, and I will talk about this. I'm going to do a bit of a summary from Innovations Conference, but there was one particular question that a lady came up to Alison after we gave our session there, and she said, just what percentage of the item has to change for it to be considered human use over AI generated. And there is no real answer. Alison couldn't really provide an answer to that. There is no answer to that. It's going to be a case law based activity, I believe. But I've got some further notes I'm going to share just on some of the legal side of things that I kind of uncovered as part of the sessions that I attended, and just other highlights as well. So I'll bring those out. I might not do an episode next week, though. I'm going to see. I might have a break next week just because it's the Easter holidays here. But I might be back. I might not be. We'll see how we go time-wise. Don't forget, we've got the webinar coming up on the 24th. Get yourself registered for that. Go to the Community.Network website. You'll see it on the front page. And get yourself registered for that. And I'll see you if I can verify your email address as being an appropriate awarding body. But that's it from me. You take care, and I'll see you soon.